Hey folks, Dr. Rob Jones here, heydrrob.com. Hopefully you've been watching my previous videos. Really what they were doing was trying to lay out what actually breaks the spine down. If we move it too much forward, too frequently forward with too much load, if we move it too much backwards, if we do both, you're going to get a range of injuries from flexion intolerance to disc bulges to sciatica to spondylolysis and listhesis to stenosis, nerve roots, all of that stuff that is just not fun. All the stuff that I see in clinic every day. So we're going to talk about the first kind of step towards a disc bulge today, which is flexion intolerance. And really out of my patient base, which is typically a microcosm of Western society, we almost all have this because we sit too much, okay? We're on our phones too much. And the scary thing about this is, I've been in practice, this is my 19th year. When I first started, we never saw this as young as we're seeing it now. I'm seeing it in 10, 11, 12-year-olds. I'm getting MRI confirmations of disc injury in 12, 13, 14-year-olds, okay? That wasn't happening 20 years ago until people were in their 20s. And that's because we're sitting too much, we're on our phones too much, we're on our computers too much. We can't change that, unfortunately, because that's the world we live in. But what we can do is keep the spine in lordosis. When we sit, we're not going to take it out of lordosis. When we bend to pick things up, we're not going to take things out of lordosis. If we do, we're going to end up with what we call flexion intolerance. Okay, and that's what we're going to talk about today. If you are the type of person that you tend to sit and you slump, when you bend, you round your back this way, okay? When you put your pants and your shoes on, you do this. And periodically you get a little bit of back tightness, a little bit of pain when you bend over, but it doesn't refer down your legs, it doesn't really hinder your life, you're just kind of uncomfortable when you sit, you probably have flexion intolerance, okay? That is usually the first step to getting a disc bulge. The way we're going to mitigate this is, guess what? Keep the spine in lordosis. Yes, you got to start your notebook for that one. Okay, so we're going to go through movements today to ensure that you don't end up with flexion intolerance, or if you have flexion intolerance, I'm going to show you how to move throughout your day so you don't end up making it worse, turning it into a disc bulge. Okay, so number one, we all tend to sit too much. So when we sit, we will default back into reverse lordosis or alordosis. Again, lordosis being this. Now, admittedly, even as a chiropractor, I don't sit up straight all day. It's hard, it's challenging, okay? You have to use your spinal muscles to sit up straight. So what do you do? You get tired and you slump back like this. So when you're working on your computer, you get into a slump. When you're sitting on your couch at home, you put your feet up, you get into a slump, and you reverse that lordosis. You start to irritate the discs, the mechanism I talked about on my whiteboard in my office, where that material of the disc starts to push back and you start getting damage in the ligaments of the disc. That is the initial stage again of a disc bulge. That's flexion intolerance. That's that pain source, okay? So what I want you to start being really mindful of is this. Typically, people who sit with flexion intolerance, me included, when you sit like this, you typically have no pain. The cue that you're sitting in the wrong positions is really important. I want you to remember this, is when you get into the wrong position, it may not hurt right away, but what you will feel is you will feel a stretch right in the middle of your spine. Now, this is not a muscle stretch, this is not a muscular stretch, this is actually a ligament stretch, okay? So what happens when you sit, when your spine is not in lordosis, is your spine flexes forward like this, and these are called your spinous processes, and I explained this before, they will fan open like this. Well, these spinous processes are representative of what's happening in the bone that they're corresponded with. Okay, so we're just going to use this level here as an example. Okay, of course we're talking about the lower back, but the ilium here is in the way. You can see we've got the vertebral body here, and we've got the pedicle here, and then we come through, and that creates what's called a neural arch, which is the lamina, and then the spinous process. Now, through that solid line of bone there, it's connected to the one below it by a ligament. Now, if I'm sitting and my lumbar spine reverses like this, and again, those fan open, what that is telling you is a couple of different things. The ligament here, the interspinous ligament, is getting stretched, so you're going to get sensation from that. That's number one. Number two, if you know this is fanning open, you know that the bone, in this case and in this case, is moving closer to the one below it, and that's going to squeeze the disc, create that hydraulic pressure. Now you're going to get a stretch in the back of the disc here, which is the annulus fibrosus, and you're going to get a stretch sensation from that. And guess what? Those two sensations are enough to tell you that stretch there, even though it may feel good, and some of my patients like to stretch that, that is your cue to get up straight, okay? That is telling you, those stretches are telling you that is damage occurring. If you continue on that path, you will almost, really without a doubt, create a disc bulge in your lower back, and then there's potential for sciatica and all that. So, number one, when you sit, let's try to keep lordosis, okay? If you feel the stretch, get out of it. The problem isn't feeling the stretch and getting in there periodically, it's being in there for a long period of time, okay? So just get out of it. If you just can't sit for a long period of time, like my previous videos, roll something up, put it at the PSIS, roll it up like that, hold your pelvis up here, the spine will follow, you'll go into nice lordosis. That's number one, sitting. Okay, number two, bending. We talked about this on a previous video, but we're gonna go over it again because it's super important. Depending on what you're picking up, how low you have to go, there's really three different foundational and fundamental lifts I want you to do. The first one is really ubiquitous for most movements, is you want to learn how to do a hip hinge. Okay, this is pushing your rear end back. I tell a lot of my young athletes, I tell a lot of my patients and the companies I consult with their employees, I tell them, when in doubt, stick your butt out, okay? If you stick your butt out, you will feel a stretch through your hamstrings and your glutes. You'll know you're in a nice hip hinge. You don't feel stretch here, you've bent properly. It's that simple. So if you have to pick up something mid-range, if you're in your kitchen and you need to get something out of the second or third drawer down, simply slide your hands down your legs, push your hips back, you open the drawer, you get what you need, you come back up, you didn't feel a stretch here, you felt a stretch here, you know you've done it properly, okay? That's your hip hinge. When you're splashing water on your face at night, don't just dump your chest down. Remember, you're gonna feel that stretch. Widen your stance a little bit, push your rear end back. Remember, when in doubt, stick your butt out. Feel for the stretch here, splash a little water on your face. Another thing that you can do too is if you push your knees to the side, so you're gonna hinge back so the spine is in a nice lordosis. Now, if you push your knees to the side this way, you'll feel your what's called your gluteus medius, which are these pelvic stabilizers. You'll feel them turn on, and that will actually really give you a nice bit of stability. You won't hurt yourself. Okay, that's mid-range bending. Okay, something simple like a pen. Okay, I have had several patients, literally dozens of patients over the years, sometimes probably hundreds if I actually count, who have dropped a pen, went down to pick up the pen, and they threw their back out. And again, we talked about that on a previous video, that's spinal buckling, okay? But for something a little low like that, what I want you to do is this. If you're crazy flexible through here, you can probably push your hips back and get all the way down. Most of us can't. I'm not that flexible. I've only had 5 patients, yes, 5 patients in 18 years of practice who could get their hands flat to the ground and keep their spine in lordosis, okay? Only 5, and they were 3 out of the 5 were yoga instructors. So, you know, let's probably not consider that as our option for this. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna bend and we're gonna go, yep, I can't get any further than that. What are my options? Well, I have 2 at this point. Very simple. Do it like a golfer. Hand on the wall, kick your leg back, pick it up. Super simple, okay? If you don't have something to lean against and you're concerned with your balance, simply go down, pick it up like that, chest up, one knee, come back up. If you have knee pain, this is doable. All you have to do is put your hand here, carry the weight of your upper body on your hands, grab the object, put your hands back on your knee, push your knee to the side a little bit, push your hands down, and that will help with the knee pain. Again, all 3 of those movements have prevented your spine from rounding. Okay, so remember, hip hinge, golfers pick up when we can, oops, and then a lunge if we need to. Now, let's talk about getting dressed. Most of us are susceptible to injury first thing in the morning because discs fill with fluid while we sleep. So if you have a little disc bulge, it's actually going to be a little bit bigger first thing in the morning by about 20%. So the last thing you want to do is bend forward, bring your foot up like this, and blow your back out. Okay, so what I want you to do is, I'm just going to take a little Perform Better band here. If you're putting your underwear and your pants on, basically cross your leg over your leg, push your butt back like a hip hinge, put one leg through, okay? You're going to bring it up to here. Your underwear, I guarantee, will be easier than this there band because they're not going to be tight like this. Then your other one, hold on, pull it out like this, and put your leg through, then you pull it out, okay? Again, going to be much easier because you're not going to have a top band to put on, unless your underwear are really tight. Pants, jeans, shorts, whatever, the same way. Hold on to something, put your foot through, put your other foot through, bring it up. A lot of people who are in acute back pain will actually find these positions out of necessity because it hurts too much to flex. If you do this and you make it the new normal, your back won't hurt anymore because you're not giving it a reason to get mad because you're not rounding it, okay? People say to me all the time, so I should never round my spine? And I say, no. You can round it periodically, just don't make it your prominent motion. If you don't make it your prominent motion, you're gonna be fine. Okay, last couple things. Socks and shoes. What do most people typically do when they put on their socks? The same motion. Ouch, hurt the back. Same thing with the shoes. So what are we gonna do? We're gonna sit down, we're gonna cross our legs. If your hips are a little tight, you'll be able to get through this. Raise your chest up, put your sock on, cross over here, put your other sock on. Same thing with your shoes. Put your shoes on, tie them like that, you're good to go. As long as you don't drop down here, you're not gonna have any problems. So that's it in a nutshell. If you have flexion intolerance, you have been doing this way too much. If you follow my lead and you make these movements like I just laid out, your pain will start to go away because you're not making that area angry. And remember, if you feel that stretch, you're moving improperly. If you feel the stretch through here as you bend, you're moving properly. It's that simple. Now this is part 1 of flexion intolerant fixes. We're going to do part 2 next time. So hopefully this was helpful. If you liked it, give me a like. If you like what I've been saying so far, check us out on socials at Hey Dr. Rob. And until next time, protect your back.